Now, across Texas, the issue is.
I'm Greg Krugen in Houston.
I'm Stephen Dial in Dallas.
I'm Rudy Koski in Austin, and this is Texas, the issue is.
Former Congressman Chris Bell has joined the field seeking the Democratic nod to take on three-term Texas Governor Greg Abbott. Despite longtime Republican dominance of the Lone Star State, the Chapel Hill lawyer believes there's now plenty of political blood in the water, and he's prepared to pounce.
I think the state's on the wrong path and has been for quite some time. Greg Abbott's worn out his welcome. His approval rating demonstrates that, and that he only has a 39% approval rating and 50% disapproval. And he's going for an unprecedented fourth term, and I think a lot of people don't welcome that. And I certainly don't. And there are things that have happened over the course of the last few years that have really told me that I needed to get in this race if I wanted to stand up for things that I believe in.
Democrats haven't won statewide since Bob Bullock. Has the environment changed to where you think it's doable?
I think this is probably the greatest opportunity that we've had in a long time. And as I said in my announcement, timing is everything. And I really do believe this is our time for the Democratic Party to take back power. There's been a lot of screaming, a lot of complaining on the Democratic side. We want to yell about Greg Abbott, we want to yell about Donald Trump, but you got to give something people more than that. It can't just be about them being wrong. It has to be about why you're right.
Well, what are you going to bring to the table then?
Well, education has always been at the forefront for me, because I think if the Republican Party succeeds in destroying public education here in the state of Texas, then in many ways they're going to succeed in destroying the state. And I think we saw the first step in that process with private school vouchers. The key to improving education here in the state of Texas is not getting more kids to leave public school to go to private schools. The way to improve education is to improve public schools. Now, how do we accomplish that? First, we start treating teachers like the professionals that they are, recognizing that no one plays a bigger role in a child's life than, except for their parents, of course, but for teachers. And we seem to overlook that. And we're going to have to start treating teachers like professionals and pay them a professional way.
So you think that the Republican argument that competition will breed, progress within the public schools is a false one?
I think you should empower parents that if their child is in a low-performing school, they should be able to move their child, and of course the tax money follows the child, and should be able to move that child to a higher performing school where they're more comfortable. And I've always supported that, but I'm not comfortable with the idea of moving kids into private schools. And there's been the suggestion, Greg, that some of the proponents of that really would like to see Texas become a theocracy, and that scares the hell out of me. We really have sort of turned Texas into haves versus the have-nots. We have the 8th largest economy in the entire world here in the state of Texas, and I did say world, not country. 8th in the entire world. But we are the most financially distressed state in the entire country, and that's based on the number of bankruptcies, the number of uninsured. Those are real problems affecting everyday people, and certainly it's about affordability, but it's also about livability and quality of life. And when you have the highest number of uninsured individuals in the entire country, that's inexcusable.
Okay, fellas, my word coming out of that interview is Caucasian. Explanation forthcoming. Stephen, what's your word?
Oh, wow. My word is gamble.
All right, Rudy, lay it on me.
Okay, guys, I'm going to pull one from my old childhood memory, an old childhood TV show that we all remember. Hey, 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 Fat Albert. One of the characters, not Rudy, not the good-looking one, but another one, Rerun. I'll explain that later.
All right, plenty to unpack on this suddenly crowded Democratic primary to come, and we'll do just that on the other side of this break. Former Congressman and Houston City Councilman Chris Bell says he's the guy to whom Texas Democrats should coalesce around in a bid to knock Greg Abbott out of the governor's mansion. Rudy, Bell has run and lost statewide before, and this time he's one of at least 3 white male Democrats in a primary field now crowded with Caucasians looking to beat Gina Hinojosa. Is that significant, or have progressive moves have they moved past identity politics?
Yeah, a lot of white guys in the field, right? You know, it's an interesting question, Greg. For more than a decade, the DNC has been all about identity politics, labeling, you know, which tribe are you part of, which group are you a part of, whether it's defending transgender men who compete in women's sports to the use of pronouns. You know, the Democrats have been that big tent. We want everyone in there, right? But, you know, Bell and the other candidates that we've spoken to, they certainly have tried to distance themselves from gender identity issues, but it remains a big part of the DNC DNA. So what do we say about this male-dominated field here? It could be a reaction to the ballot box rejection that Democrats got hit in the face with in the 2024 presidential race. Remember that? You know, we're not tough enough to attract guys to the party. Well, party leaders and analysts have said Democrats do have a problem connecting with men. So it's going to be interesting to see if Gina Hinojosa can work all this lineup, this all-male lineup, to her advantage. You know, it's all about image and separation in this race, and it could probably come down to name recognition and not policy positions, but separation in who you are and who people and how people recognize you. Greg?
All right, Stephen, like all the Democrats we've heard from so far, Bell demonized school choice as a strategy aimed at destroying public schools. And yet the latest polling shows a majority of Texas parents welcome the option. Is this a hill Bell or any of the Democrats should choose to die on?
That's exactly why I use the word gamble. 1, you're gambling with making this a center issue. And then 2, a lot of these candidates are just gambling with their money or other people's money because it's very uphill for them to, 1, get the nomination, and 2, dethrone Greg Abbott. Now, Democrats trying to make education a core topic. I mean, it goes to some of the learning from last year of talking about kitchen table items. Schools are a kitchen table item. There's something that a lot of parents care about. But the thing is, making that the forefront when the program has not been proven yet, maybe a hard sell when we've already heard all of these speeches before school choice or the voucher program became a reality in past. And so it's kind of just like rinse and repeat, but we don't really see what the program has done yet. So you're criticizing something that you really don't have stats on yet.
Yeah, good point. Rudy, Chris Bell talked about Texas being a state of haves and have-nots and suggested our wealth should be spread more equitably on fundamentals like healthcare access. Is this the kind of message that can catch fire, or just a re-rack of a traditional progressive platform plank?
Yeah, that's a good word, re-rack. Stephen had a good word and a good phrase, rinse and repeat on all this. You know, the us against them, rich versus poor strategy, clearly the plan nationwide for Democrats. But I don't see a full-on socialist campaign in Texas like what we saw in New York City. Maybe some tweaking of it, but not a full-on. My word for Chris Bell interview was rerun. Hey, a little Fat Albert there, but not for the character, not for his second try and the second try attempt by Andrew White, but for what we're hearing from all these candidates that are running for governor on the Democratic side. They all want to spike school choice, and they all say Donald Trump is the bad guy. You know, maybe my words should have been rebooted. You know, it's clear Democrats are trying to use part of the GOP playbook that worked for them last year, talking about the economy, and a rewrite of that, of who's to blame. Greg?
Stephen, Chris Bell contended Greg Abbott's popularity has waned and he'll be vulnerable. Do you believe that?
I mean, Governor Abbott is, if not the most popular politician in Texas. And I mean, he has name recognition statewide and nationwide. And so, again, it's a tall task for anyone, any Democrat, to dethrone a Republican. But then when you throw in Greg Abbott, who has the support of Governor Abbott, who's been doing things that the White House enjoys and likes, now main stage with this redistricting fight, on top of other things, it's just too much of a Goliath to defeat, it would have to be multiple miracles, in my opinion. All right, where's the beef? That's a real question. I talked to the Texas Agriculture Commissioner about the problem. Hear about that coming up. Well, as we head into the holiday season, that means we're going to be eating a lot more. And you may have noticed beef prices at the grocery store are kind of high. I sat down with Texas Agriculture Commissioner Sid Miller to give his honest opinion about when he thinks prices will realistically drop.
A lot of people have been talking about beef prices. Those prices are not as cheap as they used to be. Why is that?
Well, we have a drought. We have lowest cattle numbers we've had in 75 years. So it's a lack of supply. Supply and demand is what's causing it. And we just don't have enough beef. That's a very simple problem. But it's complicated to solve because it takes a while to regrow a beef herd. Unlike when we had high egg prices, a hen can lay an egg every day. And so she can have like 365 chicks every year, but a cow has one calf a year. So it takes a while to rebuild the herd.
I know this week Agriculture Commissioner Brooke Rollins talked about giving more grazing land, federal lands, and you said you were somewhat advocating for that. How will that help? I would assume it doesn't help immediately, but it will help in the long term.
Well, and this was in response. I sent a response to President Trump when he came out and said he wanted to import Argentine beef. I said, well, that's not going to solve the long-range problem. Importing beef in a box doesn't help rebuild our cattle herd. I said, so one of my suggestions was, let's open up federal grazing lands so we'll have a place to put our cows in time of drought. We can retain heifers and make more mama cows and regrow the national herd. So they actually did that. We had, in the Biden administration, they canceled all the grazing leases. They were trying to stop greenhouse gases, coming from cow flatulence. And so they run all the cattle off the grazing leases. So Secretary Burgum's going to open up 5 million acres. So that'll during time of drought as we're going through now, that gives us a place to retain those cattle and not have to send them to slaughter. That'll help.
What would your message be to Texans who go to the grocery store? And I mean, inflation has reduced, but prices are still high for kitchen table things. We're Texans, we like steak and all that other stuff. What would be your message?
Well, hamburger meat's up about 13%. So that's not that bad, but it is up. And Donald Trump made a promise. He was going to bring down the price of eggs. He did. He said he's going to bring down the price of gas and oil. He did. He said he's going to bring down the price of groceries. So even this week, he reduced the tariffs on groceries that we don't grow, like bananas and mangoes and coffee and things like that. So he's reducing the tariff on beef, which should help lower the price. It doesn't mean we're bringing in more beef. We have quotas, and they're maxed out, but it will at least lower the tariff, and hopefully that will be passed on to the consumer.
So is it kind of just a hang in there with us? Is going to happen?
Well, it's going to take till 2027 to rebuild our nation's cattle herd. Like I said, it doesn't happen overnight. A cow can only have one calf a year, and it's 2 more years before that calf can reproduce. So it's a time-consuming to rebuild the herd.
I know you're an elected official. Republicans won big on kitchen table items, talking about the economy. While the economy has been improving, some will say it hasn't improved quick enough for them. Do you fear that some of these type of everyday Texan issues could hurt Republicans in 2026?
I don't think so because Donald Trump's holding true on all of his campaign promises. I just saw where the cost of Christmas and turkey dinner is going to be down 25%. That's huge. Compared to this time last year under the Biden administration. So bringing down the cost of groceries is happening. Certain items like beef is not falling as fast as the eggs fell, but overall groceries are coming down. So that's a promise made, promise kept.
All right. Now, to give context and to be fair, the egg thing was totally different because there was a flu going on. But Rudy, do you agree, or promises made, promises kept when it comes to kitchen table items like groceries?
For the most part, Stephen, I would say yes, but it's all about perspective. Trump's overly aggressive tariff war to get better trade deals and bring industry back to the United States has muddied the water around the economy because people want their deals on their cheap products. You know, people have short-term memories and have forgotten how the Biden administration's Green New Deal policies drove up prices. You know, it all started at the pump. And that viral video where Biden promised his donors he would shut down the fossil fuel industry. Remember that? You know, his attempts at that increased transportation cost, and that increased cost for items being delivered to store shelves, basic, you know, economics. And when meat prices went up, Biden blamed the meat packers, remember, accusing them of pandemic profiteering. Harris did the same thing with grocery stores. They're gouging you. You know, we can't deny that gas prices are lower, and the national average was more than doubled under Biden, exceeding, I think, is like $5 a gallon. He blamed Putin for that hit. The problem for Republicans is that voters, along with their short-term memory, they're like instant rice. They want it now. I want it now. And with the mainstream media, you know, mainly focused on snarky comments that the president makes, like that quiet piggy quip that he did on the Air Force One, you know, it's going to be up to the GOP to get their message out and list the promises kept, not once, but weekly. The problem is they can't just stop, you know, getting sidetracked by internal fistfights, as well as fixating on, you know, who got the email from Jeffrey Epstein. Stephen?
Greg, do you agree with the gentleman from Austin?
Stephen, as a Texan who actually barbecues, no exaggeration, 50 weeks out of the year in my backyard, this is an issue of critical personal concern. Hell, if it were up to me, I'd declare a massive subsidy for cattlemen across the country to rebuild the herd, which hasn't been this small since I was an infant. And I would immediately yank the quotas on foreign beef as an emergency measure. Clearly, that's an emotional response, but I have strong feelings about what's on Gru's grill. And Yardbird just doesn't cut it. Supply and massive demand are completely out of whack, and as Miller correctly pointed out, you can't turn a 9-month bovine gestation period on a dime. So we all just have to suck it up and pay more. 2 pieces of advice. Cross-cut ribs, beef, also known as flanken, is still reasonably priced and delicious. And then there's the other red meat, Aussie and New Zealand lamb chops on the grill. Never disappoint. Stephen?
Rudy, we got to take a trip to the Grugan Grill. Rudy, Sid Miller was transparent in saying he doesn't think this problem is going to be fixed until 2027. You already alluded to it. You said voters are like instant rice. They want it now. Will that be too long for voters?
Yeah, we can all meet up at Gru's Grill. We know where the beef is. It's there, right? You know, Miller is right. It takes time to rebuild a cow herd. I remember the big beef sell-off during the drought. Covered that several times. Went to the big auction yards. Simply put, no grass, no feed, no cows. The idea of opening up grasslands is a good one. I like Greg's idea of let's, you know, drop these barriers, bring in, as Miller said, beef in a box. You know, but I'm not quite sure if voters will immediately notice it. I think some kind of deal to bring in more foreign beef will have to be made, but it's got to be temporary. I agree with that. In the past, allowing imported food in like shrimp and catfish really hurt American producers. So it's got to be temporary. You can't just do it and not close that door again. Bottom line, the political analysts who I've spoken to are universal in thinking that the GOP has got to serve up the inflation problem as one that was created when the Democrats were in control of the White House, the Senate, and the House. Miller's cow gas comment, you know, that's great. It's a smart way to, you know, make people remember. I remember Fartgate, if you will. It points. It's a good point to be reminding voters how the Biden administration was adamant to clear the air. They wanted to thin the herd, if not completely eliminate it. Right, Stephen?
Greg, you have the last word.
All right, look, Democrats can't use this issue. They are conflicted. Half of them blame cattle flagellants as a contributor to climate change. Another chunk are vegan and don't think a juicy ribeye has any place in the American diet. And then there's the vocal subset who condemn cattle industry as mass cruelty to defenseless animals. So, you know, my point, Democrats have sort of boxed themselves in.
All right, we have other issues to talk about. This is the wild card moment, and after this break, we'll take our issues up. All right, welcome back. This is the segment where we have other issues to vent. And I'll start things off with, as we enter into this final push to the college football playoff, poor old Ole Miss seems to be having an identity crisis and a problem with their coach. Here they are, 10-1. Everyone should be talking about this phenomenal season that they have, or talking about their amazing backup quarterback who should be a legitimate Heisman contender. But what are they talking about? What is everyone talking about? Whether or not Lane Kiffin is going to go to Florida or LSU or to the NFL. And Kiffin himself will not give a straight answer as to what's going on. And then you throw in the mix that his family is seen going to Gainesville and another part of his family going to Red Stick. So it's very convoluted, and I feel bad for my Ole Miss brethren who should be celebrating this wonderful time. We've got a bye week, and we're getting into our state hate week for the Big Egg Bowl, and all we're worried about is Lane Kiffin. I'm sad. All right. Stephen?
Greg.
Oh, Greg, sorry.
Oh, here in Houston, we just banned scooters from being on the street after 8 p.m. Kind of mixed bag on it. Although my mom used to say nothing good happens after midnight, so maybe nothing good happens after 8 o'clock on a scooter. It's dark. It's kind of scary out there. I wonder, guys, whether this is a local ordinance, whether it'll be trumped by libertarian-leaning Republicans at the state legislature saying, you can't do that. You can't infringe upon the freedom to ride a scooter. That's what I got.
All right, guys, my issue, of course, is sports. One, go Dogs after beating Texas. Had to say that on the record. And then two, I kind of don't want Georgia to go to the SEC championship game. Here's why. Last year, the teams who went to championship games and had that first round bye didn't do that well. I think Georgia's hitting their momentum. Get that first home game, playoff, play a little easier team, and hit a stride. I don't want Georgia to go to the SEC championship and lose to possibly Texas A&M. That is my issue.
They're going. They're going.
All right, that's all the time we have. To see this episode or any of our past ones, go to our station's YouTube channels.
You can also keep the conversation going on our social media sites.
Always something going on in Texas politics, so we'll be back next week to talk about it. In the meantime, don't forget to let us know what you think the issue is.